Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. One who fears failure limits his activities. Failure is only the opportunity more intelligently to begin again. Failure is only the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. Whether you believe you can do a thing or not, you are right. If you think of standardization as the best that you know today, but which is to be improved tomorrow, you get somewhere. Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is to keep your mind young. Nobody can think straight who does not work. Idleness warps the mind. Thinking without constructive action becomes a disease. Capital punishment is as fundamentally wrong as a cure for crime as charity is wrong as a cure for poverty. Coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. The question who ought to be boss is like asking who ought to be the tenor in the quartet. Obviously, the man who can sing tenor. There is one rule for the industrialist, and that is, make the best quality of goods possible at the lowest cost possible, paying the highest wages possible. It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Of course, it is not the employer who pays wages. He only handles the money. It is the product that pays wages, and it is the management that arranges the production so that the product may pay the wages. It has been my observation that most people get ahead during the time that others waste. The man who will use his skill and constructive imagination to see how much he can give for $1, instead of how little he can give for $1, is bound to succeed. Wealth, like happiness, is never attained when sought after directly. It comes as a byproduct of providing a useful service. Enthusiasm is the yeast that makes your hopes shine to the stars. Enthusiasm is the sparkle in your eyes, the swing in your gait. The grip of your hand, the irresistible surge of will and energy to execute your ideas. Economy has frequently nothing whatever to do with the amount of money being spent, but with the wisdom used in spending it. You can do anything if you have enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the yeast that makes your hopes rise to the stars. With it, there is accomplishment. Without it, there are only alibis. From time waste there can be no salvage. It is the easiest of all waste and the hardest to correct because it does not litter the floor. If you think of standardization as the best that you know today, but which is to be improved tomorrow, you get somewhere. Speculation is only a word covering the making of money out of the manipulation of prices, instead of supplying goods and services. The competitor to be feared is one who never bothers about you at all, but goes on making his own business better all the time. The best we can do is size up the chances, calculate the risks involved, estimate our ability to deal with them, and then make our plans with confidence. The high wage begins down in the shop. If it is not created there, it cannot get into pay envelopes. There will never be a system invented which will do away with the necessity for work. The only real security that a man can have in this world is a reserve of knowledge, experience, and ability. If money is your only hope for independence, you will never have it. The only real security that a man can have in this world is a reserve of knowledge, experience, and ability. The cure for materialism is to have enough for everybody and to share. When people are sure of having what they need, they cease to think about it. Life is a series of experiences, each one of which makes us bigger, even though sometimes it is hard to realize this. For the world was built to develop character, and we must learn that the setbacks and grieves which we endure help us in our marching onward. We have always found that, if our principles were right, the area over which they were applied did not matter. Size is only a matter of the multiplication table. Even a mistake may turn out to be the one thing necessary to a worthwhile achievement. You will find men who want to be carried on the shoulders of others, who think that the world owes them a living. They don't seem to see that we must all lift together and pull together. The question who ought to be boss is like as who ought to be the tenor in the quartet. Obviously, the man who can sing tenor. There is joy in work. There is no happiness except in the realization that we have accomplished something. If I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. New York is a different country. Maybe it ought to have a separate government. Everybody thinks differently, they just don't know what the hell the rest of the United States is. Competition is the keen cutting edge of business, always shaving away at costs. The man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right. Which one are you? It is not the employer who pays the wages. Employers only handle the money. It is the customer who pays the wages. Business is never so healthy as when, like a chicken, it must do a certain amount of scratching around for what it gets. Life is work, and everything you do is so much more experience. Sometimes you work for wages, sometimes not, but what does anybody make but a living? And whatever you have you must either use or lose. I believe God is managing affairs and that He doesn't need any advice from me. With God in charge, I believe everything will work out for the best in the end. So what is there to worry about? The question, who ought to be boss, is like asking, who ought to be tenor in the quartet? Obviously, the man who can sing tenor. Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably the reason why so few engage in it. We don't want tradition. We want to live in the present, and the only history that is worth a tinker's damn is the history we make today. I cannot discover that anyone knows enough to say definitely what is and what is not possible. Too many of us, when we accomplish what we set out to do, exclaim, "See what I have done," instead of saying, "See where I have been led." If there is any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. When everything seems to be going against you, remember that the airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. A business absolutely devoted to service will have only one worry about profits. They will be embarrassingly large. Business is never so healthy as when, like a chicken, it must do a certain amount of scratching for what it gets. Life is a series of experience, each one of which makes us bigger, even though sometimes it is hard to realize this. For the world was built to develop character, and we must learn that the setbacks and griefs which we endure help us in our marching onward. To do more for the world than the world does for you, that is success. The highest use of capital is not to make more money, but to make money do more for the betterment of life. If money is your hope for independence, you will never have it. The only real security that a man will have in this world is a reserve of knowledge, experience, and ability. The government in business may waste time and money without rendering service. In the end, the public pays in taxes. The corporation cannot waste or it will fall. It cannot make unfair rulings or give high-handed, expensive service, for there are not enough people willing to accept inferior service to make a volume of business that will pay dividends. Henry Ford.